I'm on the trail of the Old Ghan rail route between Port Augusta and Alice Springs. My goal was to provide a visual record of as many of the sidings, fettlers cottages and other rail infrastructure that I can identify between those two places. Many of the places I've visited are accessible to any who have the means to get to them and are in close vicinity to the major road networks of the state of South Australia. Others are on private pastoral land, and I've sought and received permission to access them from the various landowners and or managers. In every case, I've been welcomed and have received the greatest hospitality from them, and I've been able to gain access to some wonderfully forgotten ruins that not many people get to see. Previously, in episode 4, we visited the Fettlers Cottage at Petappa, the interesting points at the Lee Creek crossover and the Lee Creek Airport, Copley Railway Station, the Gregory Bridge, and lastly Lyndhurst Siding. Stay with me now as we jump back into the time machine, rewind 6 weeks and return to our August trip, taking in the sidings between Farina and Abminga. Well, here I am again. This was filmed 6 weeks before I did the solo trip to cover the southern portion of the Ghan, and which formed episodes 1 to 4. We now pick up at the start of our August trip, and here I'm rabbiting on about how our planned trip to Lake Mackay on the WA Northern Territory border got canned at the last minute when permit requests were never responded to in time. And I'm explaining that we changed our trip goal to now follow the Old Ghan route from Farina to Alice Springs. Before I go any further, I should acknowledge the now glaring error throughout my exploration of the Old Ghan route, and that is that I've been mispronouncing the name of the down thing. It's pronounced as Ghan, as in the Afghan Express, and not Ghan, as I've been doing. I've corrected this embarrassing anomaly in any voiceover that I've made, but I'm afraid any 2-camera footage made at the time has my bumbling mistake recorded for posterity. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to the story and our arrival at Farina. Okay, the turn to Farina is right here. Established 1878. There's a wonderful old, well, not restored, but built in the old style information centre there on the left. It's only a couple of years old. Transcontinental Hotel on the right. I'm just going to drive down the main street, so to speak, and head straight to the campground to set up camp. The first sighting is that of Farina. Probably the one of the most well preserved, with the most relics and artefacts still at the site. It's got some rolling stock in there. It's got a completely, well, almost intact tank. Typical of all the sidings, cast iron, prefabricated. They haven't really stood the test of time. Most of them crack and hold and don't hold water, but this one's complete in so much as it's all the panels are there. They've got some holes in the corners, but that's to be expected. The standpipe is was always there, but it's had a coat of paint since I was last here. It used to be black, brown, rust. Now it's been given a white coat. And the melancholy sound of a cawing crow. The pink grey galah here in front of me doesn't seem to be particularly perturbed by my presence. Well, tell a lie. It's looking very fresh and shiny now.
don't think there's any actual line here. There is a railway bridge further up, and of course the cottage over here. We'll go and have a look at that.
For the 2 years that it served as the terminus of the line, trains arriving here had to be turned through 180 degrees so they could travel south again. To do this, Farina utilised a reversing triangle, which is still visible on Google Earth. The train travels up a line that curves to the right until it passes a junction point. After the points are switched, it then reverses to head backwards in the new direction until it again reaches the main line. It can now travel forward in the new southerly direction. Originally called the Gums, or Government Gums, Farina was a town settled in 1878 by hopeful farmers who believed that rain followed the plough. Perceiving a need to transport all that grain south, a rail link was proposed and approved. But even while building it, it became apparent that large or indeed any grain shipments just weren't going to happen. Nevertheless, it was developed into a railhead 4 years later in 1882, and it became a centre for transporting stock to southern markets and providing stores and supplies to stations further north. Farina boasted a standard 4-track layout, a wooden station building, a residence for the station master, an arched roof goods shed, and a loading platform. Train facilities included a single line repair shed, coal hoppers, and a water standpipe fed from the 25,000 gallon overhead tank. The place flourished until the early 1900s, but after the railway was extended north to Marree, it began to decline. The last residents left in 1967. The station served on until its closure on the 10th of May 1987, and the line finally being removed in 1993.
There's a pink and grey galah. Hoping I don't see him hiding there. Probably got a nest there. Looking for date nails in the sleepers, but I can't see any. I'm sure they would have all been pilfered by now if there were any. There we go. Where once old steam trains trundled across. And now looking back down the line towards the railway where we came from, along where the train line would have gone. We're at the other end of the whole complex now, and way off in the distance there you can see the tank. And we've come down to that cottage you may have seen from the footage of the tank looking back this way. It's the old Fettler's cottage. In pretty good nick, all things considered. Apart from the pile of rubble in the middle of the room. The home. Huge high ceilings.
After Farina, there were two minor sidings, that of Wirrawilla and Mundownda. However, a fence cut in across the tracks that might have led to their locations barred access to finding what might remain of them. And as I hadn't previously sought permission to go there and could find nothing that might be a ruin on Google Earth, we bypassed these two and headed straight for Marree and the Udnadada track. When the Old Ghan reached Marree in 1884, it was then called Hurgot Springs, and it was only 6 months old itself. These fettlers cottages were built in 1884 and, not surprisingly, are the oldest railway buildings in Marree. The new standard gauge from Port Augusta arrived here in 1957, but the narrow gauge north to Alice Springs remained until the end of 1980. So for all that time, Marree was a change of gauge station. And what that meant was that every item transported by the train had to be laboriously transferred to another train in order to continue the journey. I can only imagine what an absolute pain that must have been, and it was something that had to be done to every train for 23 years. We've made our way up to Marree and we've left that. We're now on the Udnadada track and we're heading for our first siding, which is just a tank by itself at Callanna. And ta-da! Well, this is Callanna and its tank. It still has a standpipe as well. Nothing else left of the siding, a little bit of rail stuff we'll photograph in a second, but yeah, the tank. Further along, the next siding we come to is Wangianna. It has a building, this one's got a roof on it, I believe, from past experience, and a little bit of perhaps rail infrastructure. We'll see that. It's another 1.5 k's on the track here. This is Wangianna. Still got a roof, which is significant for these sort of buildings. They last so much longer with a roof on them.
Of course, it doesn't stop the mindless cretins from vandalising the place. The level of preservation is hugely increased as long as the roof stays on. Farina could do with some work though. The next siding we're going to come to will be Alberrie Creek, which is just past Plain Henge, which is visible just on the horizon right now, but may not be so in the camera. It's a quirky Udinadatta track thing. So it seems to be a private property, but there's someone here, we'll see. If not, that's the Ghan tank right in front of us there. This is the site of the Alberrie Siding, and obviously it's the associated tank. This forms part of the sculpture park down the road with the planes where Plain Henge. And that arm at the left up the top there used to have a car body hanging from it, which from over by the plains made this look like a dog with a tail. It has since crashed to the ground. Yeah, it used to be up there. That tank has long since ceased to be able to hold any water. And there's another little dog just there. Part of Alberrie Creek. Our next siding is Bopeechee, which is just on the intersection of the Udinadatta track and the road down to Roxby Downs and Woomera. There's almost, well, I don't dare say there's nothing left of it. There's a pile of rubble over here, which I suspect would probably be it. we'll go and have a quick look. Well, there was certainly something here, and it would have been something associated with the siding. Whether this is the actual building of it or not, it's anyone's guess. The train line, or the line of the train, is over here about 40-50 metres. And that's the line of the train heading towards Marree, and it chuffed off down there. There's a concrete pad in front of us here, similar to the one at Wangianna. With God knows what underneath it. So this is Bopeechee.
This is the Gregory Bridge, so called because it spans the Gregory Creek, and which actually has water in it. Almost certainly as a testament to recent rain events, I'd think. At least I don't think it's a spring. This is located just past Bopeechee, and at 190 metres long, is it among the larger of the Ghan bridges found along the Udinata track. I'm always fascinated and delighted by the life that water brings to otherwise dry places like this. The next Ghan sighting was that of Lake Eyre. Unfortunately, I never located the actual site, but launching the drone at the Lake Eyre South observation point, I was able to clearly identify the line. Boy, they really didn't give themselves much leeway for flood mitigation, and it's little wonder that the line was washed away as often as it was, running so close to the usually dry shores of Lake Eyre. This pic from back in the day shows the Old Ghan churning through Lake Eyre floodwaters.
The next siding is Curdimurka. This one has got quite a bit of infrastructure. It's got an old water softener, first one we've come across in the siding trip, as well as a great Fettler's cottage, still with a roof, and there's some bits of rail and other infrastructure around the place. I have a feeling that they fenced it off. Certainly they did the last time I tried to get in here. No, either the fence has been cut, or they've given it away as a bad joke. You can get in here. Absolutely great ruin, this one.
Apart from the Ghan aspect of the place, Curdimurka is, or was, pretty well known for another reason. This place is some 100 kilometres in either direction from the nearest settlements of Marree and William Creek. Yet every 2 years for 10 years, between 1986 and 1996, the Curdimurka Outback Ball attracted thousands of partygoers. Initially starting out as a black tie affair to raise funds for the preservation of the site, 105 guests all arrived here, donned all their finery and sat down to a silver service dinner. 2 years later, in 1988, 218 people gathered there again, this time for the Fettlers Ball. After quickly developing a reputation, that event was held again the following year. By 1990, patronage had swelled to some 1,600 people, and the Curdimurka Ball was born. The last one was held in 1996, but after a hiatus of 26 years it was rebooted last year in 2022, but now held at Marree. Curdimurka being put off limits by BHP, the present administrators of the site. This is among the best preserved of all the sidings that have simply been left unattended. Its remoteness, I'd imagine the respect that people probably have for its history, and the fact that it has a roof, doors and windows to keep the elements at bay has meant the world of difference to this becoming another crumbling wreck. As I've already pointed out, the outback balls came into existence as fundraisers to provide some level of restoration or at the very least stabilisation, and it's great to see this piece of history from a bygone era still largely standing. Long may it do so. Outback patio area? What more could you want for? Oh, I'll go in the other way rather than leave that door open. Okay, back out front. Pleased to see it hasn't been vandalised with little scribble graffiti all over it. Makes a nice change. A little bit dark for videoing. And the old water softening plant down the ways. This is the first one that's still standing that we've found so far on this journey. We'll see a few more as we head north though. It was used to treat the bore water they got out of the ground. Salinity and the minerals in it used to eat the guts out of the train's boilers, so they needed to treat it. And of course, accompanied by a Ghan water tank.